Now tuned into the greatest.
The Run with Manny Wilson podcast.
The Run, the Manny Wilson podcast.
The best sports podcast there is.
Yes, sir. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Run with me, Manny Wilson, all the way from Detroit to Chicago to your speakers and headphones. I appreciate you tuning in to the first interactive sports podcast. You know, a community that makes sure your voice is heard. So if you hear something you agree with, disagree with, you like, dislike, or just want to outsmart me on something I said, feel free to shoot us a call, 219-413-9405, and we will play your take back on air for our next episode. Now, we got a lot of different things to cover today, and you got to bear with me for a sec, too, as you can probably tell by now, and you can probably hear, I'm a tiny bit under the weather. I know last episode I was under the weather, too. Y'all like, damn. I know. I'm thinking the same thing. Damn, I'm sick again. Like, this is insane. I haven't been taking my supplements, my sea moss and stuff, though. Those that know me know I don't play about my sea moss. I always take my sea moss. But I haven't been doing that. I got to get some more. That's a side note. All of that is a side note. I'm here. I'm healthy. So just bear with me. We still going to have a great episode. First things first is really the free agent DeAndre Hopkins. He signed with the Tennessee Titans. And this is a bad location. It's a terrible location for any wide receiver to go play with a quarterback who cannot throw the ball accurately after 40 yards. It's not good to me. And out of all the receivers that the Tennessee Titans have had, all of them has pretty much almost ended their career there with Tennessee Titans. It's been a turning point in their career when they signed with the Tennessee Titans. Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, even Andre Johnson going back that far when Marcus Mariota is his quarterback. They all became wasted talent at some point in Tennessee because they didn't have a quarterback who could really help them thrive. And I know DeAndre Hopkins signed there, you know, for his other reasons. He got paid, whatever the case was, all of the reasons that could go into this decision. But unfortunately, they don't have a quarterback. And I'm very, very concerned about Ryan Tannehill throwing him the ball because Ryan Tannehill was ranked 22nd in passing yards for the season last year. Not 7th, not 12th, not 15th, 22nd in passing yards. He had 0 touchdown game-winning drives. He had 0 game-winning drives last year. Not even 3, not even 1. Out of all the 16 weeks in the NFL, 0 game-winning drives. I have no faith in him. However, this can possibly still help Tennessee. So I'm not going to completely throw them under the bus. Their division is not the best. The AFC South is not the best. They only really got competition in the Jaguars. That's about it. Other than that, this is going to open up the offense for Derrick Henry. I will say that because any offense is easy to stop when you only have to game plan for the run. With Derrick Henry, there are no other receivers as a threat that can turn things big. The focus is going to be on Derrick Henry every time. There's only so much ISO. There's only so much inside zone. There's only so much counters. All of that stuff you can run to fool the defense when they know you're going to run the ball. But here's the Hopkins effect. DeAndre Hopkins, he's going to change that around a lot because Hopkins is going to at least make you think twice before you stack the box and gamble on the run. You're not going to just do that every single time because he's a premier threat. Hopkins is going to make you think twice before leaving him in a 1v1 situation on the island somewhere simply because he can turn the small plays big. So even if he catches a route within that 40 yards, he can still cut it upfield and turn it big. So it's a scary receiver to gamble with when you have Hopkins out there lined up over cornerbacks. And then, of course, if he can get the ball, if the quarterback can get the ball down further enough, if Tannehill can throw the ball further enough, Hopkins can definitely catch a jump ball. So it's definitely going to help them in some ways, but I don't think it's going to help them enough to really become elite competitors for a Super Bowl or elite competitors come playoff. At most, I'll give them their division. I think they were probably going to end up playing the Jaguars in their division anyway, just because the competition there is not really sturdy. You got, the Colts and the Texans? Texans are still in a rebuild. They're not quite there. Colts, they've been struggling since Andrew Luck left. So I highly doubt that those two teams are really going to compete for the AFC South. Jaguars, they've been doing their thing. Trevor Lawrence have been improving each and every single year that he's shown up. So I know they're going to be competing for their division. And now that the Titans, they add Hopkins, I think it'll be a little bit better. So I'd say they compete as well for their division. Now, I got a couple of side notes here. Starting off with James Harden. James Harden, he requested a trade, obviously, as you all know, and he's standing firm on this trade. And now, according to Shams, his ideal destination is the Los Angeles Clippers. And this is a disgusting choice. All these bad decisions being made. We were talking about the decision-making from DeAndre Hopkins first. Now, this is another bad decision if he actually goes to the Clippers from James Harden. Because I swear, and I said it before, the Clippers, they have an impressive roster. They do their due diligence in the front office, but nothing seems to work on that side of LA. Every year they've had an impressive roster, they failed to make it work. When you look at that stretch between 2011 and 2013, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Jamal Crawford, Matt Barnes, all of those guys, they failed to make it work. And on paper, it was amazing, but they just can never translate that on paper roster to the actual on-court play. Because even now with Paul George, Kawhi, Westbrook, and the role guys that they have on that team, they still can't translate it to the on-court action. It never works out when they play the game in the actual season. So it's hard to imagine that the Clippers would even think about giving up their core when they haven't really had a fair shot because of injuries and all the other things that go into factors as well. I feel like the Clippers should still be content with what they have. Obviously, as I said, injuries is a key part. They need to just go ahead and have one successful season without any injuries happening in the playoffs. And I think they can actually do some damage. But to me, they don't play enough games to really have that chemistry and really have that flow in the game when they are healthy. So it's tough on James Harden going there. Obviously, they got to get rid of Kawhi or Paul George. I really don't see it happening where they get to keep Kawhi and Paul George if they get James Harden as well. From a 76ers perspective, they got so much leverage here. I'm not settling for only a Russell Westbrook or Terrence Mann. I need Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. And even then, it's still kind of scary because those guys aren't always healthy. So I'm trying to stack the box even more if I'm the 76ers. Give me even more pieces. Give me one of your star guys and then throw something else in there as well to make sure that I win this trade by giving you one of my star players. Because man, it's a lot. Paul George ain't been healthy. Kawhi ain't really been healthy like that either. So it's still a risk. And my guy, if I'm the 76ers, James Harden, has been healthy the last few seasons. So that's tough right there. Ultimately, they got a lot of players to choose from with the Clippers. They got a large pool of players to choose from because that roster is stacked. As I've been saying for the past few years, that roster has been stacked. So to me, they should be able to make it work if they want James Harden. But if I'm the 76ers, I'm trying to rip that team off. I'm not going to lie to you. All right, another quick take here I have, or another side note, is that the head coach of the University of Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, he's in some trouble. Michigan fans are kind of worried about this. Michigan fans overreact to everything. Whether it's wins or losses, they overreact because they're supposed to be so excellent, but the team has barely beat Ohio State in a decade. That's another conversation for something else. Anyway, Jim Harbaugh. It's said that he will face at least a 4-game suspension over a recruiting violation. So Michigan, I think they're going to be all right, even though Jim Harbaugh is going to be suspended for those first 4 games. The first 4 games on the schedule are home games, and they're not even playing anybody that's worth being hype over. They're not playing any competition, as if you may say. I know it's kind of disrespectful to those teams, but none of those teams were ranked in the top 25 of the AP poll last year or even in this preseason rankings. So they play East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, and Rutgers. So I would be shocked if they ended up losing any of those games, considering they are at home. And it's not like they're losing a star player like a quarterback or a running back receiver. They're losing a head coach, and that culture can still be set through the offseason, going into those games as they prepare for the season, honestly. So I think they'll be all right. But anyway, that's that, man. We got some news coming up as well, so stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break really quick. I'm going to drink some water. I'm going to drink some tea because I got to I gotta get these sinuses right, man. I'm down bad. But we got some news for the run coming up in just a second. Basketball and football as well. Also some hot takes on the rest of the show. Jaylen Brown got paid, and we got one more hypothetical for you as well to wrap up the show. So stay tuned, and we will be right back. What's up, everybody? I'm Manny from the Run with Manny Wilson podcast. Sports fans, I've been wanting to talk to you about the first interactive sports podcast I have. See, unlike the big networks of ESPN and Fox Sports, I actually care about what my listeners think. I want to hear my listeners' opinions and even for them to tell me when I'm wrong. So anytime you hear an incredible solo take from yours truly, a special guest segment, or interesting news, you can make sure your voice is heard in the conversation by leaving a quick take on our voicemail line. Listen to the Run with Manny Wilson podcast wherever you get your podcast. All right, news for the run, starting off with the NBA. The Boston Celtics, they made Jaylen Brown the highest paid player in NBA history after completing a 5-year, $304 million extension. So congrats to Jaylen Brown. We got some more on that later on after the news. I'm going to jump on that and share my opinion on that too. But James Harden of the Philadelphia 76ers, he's still standing firm on his trade request, as I mentioned. And according to Shams, the relationship between James Harden and Daryl Morey, the GM and president of basketball operations for the 76ers, have been ruined. Shams also mentioned that James Harden believes the 76ers will not give him a long-term offer as he becomes a free agent next year. Now, Joel Embiid, he spoke on his future with the 76ers, saying, "I just want to win a championship, whether it's in Philly or anywhere else." Later on, The Athletic, they released a statement saying the 76ers believes Joel Embiid wants to spend his career with the 76ers and will not force a trade anytime soon. They also said he wants to go the Kobe route. Now, son of LeBron James, Bronny James was rushed to the hospital after suffering a cardiac arrest during a workout at USC on Monday. Now, he committed to play basketball for USC, which is why he was working out there. But it turns out everything is doing a lot better. A James family statement said LeBron James Jr., Bronny James, is now in stable condition and no longer in the ICU. So happy that man is doing better. I hope he gets to live out his career and at least gets to go play basketball on that next level. Now, moving to the NFL. Saquon Barkley and the New York Giants have agreed to a contract. The agreement was a 1-year deal worth up to $11 million, including incentives. Now, quarterback Justin Herbert and the Chargers recently agreed to a 5-year extension worth up to $262 million. Excuse me, I told you, man, I'm sick. This is killing me. This deal is set to lock in Herbert as their franchise quarterback. The Las Vegas Raiders, they're signing cornerback Marcus Peters to a 1-year deal, who's known as a veteran cornerback in the NFL. The Dallas Cowboys and wide receiver Trayvon Diggs are finalizing a 5-year deal, $97 million contract extension. And as I said before, head coach of the University of Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, is in some trouble. It's said that Jim Harbaugh will at least face a 4-game suspension over a recruiting violation. All right, let's switch up the vibe just a little bit, man. Got some hot takes here for you. Let's do it. Now, the Celtics, they paid Jaylen Brown all of that money in that super max contract, making him the highest paid player in NBA history. And I don't knock it. I think it's great for the Celtics. I like it. I'm happy for the man, all of that. But immediately, a lot of people and critics are out there saying he does not deserve this contract. They say based on what he did last year in the NBA playoffs, he does not deserve this much money. He does not deserve a supermax. And I tell to respond to all of that, Jaylen Brown has been fantastic over the past few years. I understand in that Miami Heat series in the closeout game and the 76ers, he didn't play as well as we wanted him to. He wasn't as consistent as we wanted him to. He wasn't as aggressive as we wanted him to be. But understand something, because the year before that against the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals, that man played his ass off. Why are we bringing up the play in that situation? Because we do all this talk of Jason Tatum showed him up or he just needed a little bit of help. But going back to that finals against the Golden State Warriors, the conversation was switched around. It was Jaylen Brown just needs a little bit of help from Jason Tatum. Every year, every few years, or every year that these guys hit the playoffs, it's something that's the same conversation but switched around between Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Last year, it was Tatum is better. Brown needs to step up. The year before that, as I mentioned with the Warriors, it was Brown is better and Jason Tatum needs to step up. Both players are amazing and they're going to get their championship at some point, but they're both still in their early 20s. So it's plenty of time for them to get it together and get it together with one another. Now, I know it's a lot of money, but Jason Tatum still has to get paid as well, which he will. And because he had the better recent season in the postseason, I'm sure they're going to make sure he is well taken care of. So the key thing between this deal and the Boston Celtics is you want to keep those two guys together. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, you want to keep those two guys together because if not, it's going to ruin a conversation that could have been about championships. I'll put it that way. It's going to ruin a conversation of how many rings could these guys have gotten if they stayed together. Now that they're all the way developed, they're fully matured in the game of basketball, how many rings could they have won? I want to see this play out, and I want to see them actually go get rings together. So I think it was a great move for the Boston Celtics. Jaylen Brown is definitely well-deserved for this amount of money. I know he didn't play as well as we wanted him to last year, but over the past few years, he's been consistent in the regular season, and he was also consistent in the playoffs as well. But this is something that grows as time continues to prove itself and as he continues to play in the NBA. All right, now we got some more things too. Let's go ahead and jump on to this hypothetical. All right, Paul Pierce and Dwayne Wade. Let's settle this conversation right now. A lot of times people, they let the rings and accomplishments dictate this type of conversation of who was better, who was the better player, who is the better player. Kids now, they act like Paul Pierce was straight garbage because he only got the one championship and everybody else has multiple, and the guy he's comparing it to has multiple. But Paul Pierce, he was not better than Dwayne Wade. However, Paul Pierce was definitely a demon on the basketball court, so I understand the conversation. This is at least a conversation in the basketball world because he was truly a great player. Paul Pierce was that guy. This is the truth. He's the truth. We talk about how Luka Doncic plays slow and can score without the athletic ability, but truth be told, Paul Pierce was one of the first guys I've ever seen do that and dominate the league the way he did on the offensive end. I mean, he was slow as hell. He couldn't really jump. He wasn't the fastest guy, but this guy had moves and he could make shots. And that counts for something. So you got to respect the buckets here. I'm not saying he's better than D-Wade. I don't think he is better than D-Wade, especially when you look at it at a comparison basis in each category of a basketball player. He's definitely not there with D-Wade. But kids now act like Paul Pierce was straight garbage when he was that guy. Like he was really him with the Celtics. And then comparing it again, as I break it down, obviously D-Wade, he's got the athletic ability. D-Wade is the better defender. D-Wade is the better finisher, but Paul Pierce, he's a better shooter. He's a better shooter, so he definitely wins in that category. Paul Pierce, he had scoring moves. D-Wade has scoring moves as well in terms of different methods you can use to score the ball in different situations. They both definitely had moves, so they kind of balance each other out in that category there. But accomplishments, going to that, adding that to the factor of athletic ability and all of these other things, D-Wade has him beat. 13-time All-Star, 3-time NBA champion, 1 Finals MVP, 3-time All-Defensive second team, and more, much more that I didn't even mention. So even if you disagree, you at least gotta agree that this is a conversation. Don't let the rings and accomplishments dictate this conversation wholeheartedly. At least look at the skill level of the guys and the different things that they were able to bring and the different things they could do on the floor when you compare D-Wade and Paul Pierce. And again, I'm not saying Paul Pierce is better. I still say D-Wade is for sure the better player, and I will pick D-Wade anytime, but I don't know what it is with Paul Pierce, man. I don't know what it is with this guy. I don't know what validation this man is seeking from this conversation, saying he's better. In his most recent statement, he said on the situation, he said, if you give me Shaq or Bron, let me start. He said, if you give him Shaq or Bron, and I'm all over the place. If you give him Shaq or Bron and Bosh, he'd at least win one championship. Now, on this part, obviously, he had Shaq at one point. He had an older version of Shaq with the Celtics. But Paul Pierce makes it sound like he was just out here playing with scrubs. Bro, you play with Ray Allen, the best shooter of your generation. You play with Kevin Garnett, a top 5 power forward of all time. Like, you was not playing with scrubs when you was on this Celtics team. And you had 5 seasons to get more than 1 rings with that big 3, but you only came up with 1. And that's not bad. That's great. It's a lot of teams out there and a lot of people who team up with guys and don't even win 1. But I'm just saying, bro, you can't say if you give me this and if you give me that, then I would have did this, because you had those guys on the team to make something happen. You had 5 seasons of the best power forward in the league at one point and the best shooter in the league at one point, and you gonna still sit here and say, if I had this? That's disrespectful to your teammates at this point, bro. Like, I don't like the fact that he said that, and then after the first 3 seasons with Paul Pierce or with Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett, he still went to get Shaq. They still grabbed Shaq. So you had him. Your team was stacked. You just couldn't win another ring. And I mean, winning rings is tough. But no matter if you got 1 or 0, Paul Pierce, we know you're a great player. But I don't know what you're looking for. I really don't know what you're looking for. You give almost any superstar in the league, Bron, a guy who goes to the finals damn near every year, of course you're gonna somewhat do something. You give anybody that Miami Heat Shaq put together around a great team, of course you're going to be a competitor. But that same conversation can go both ways when you talk about Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett. You give D-Wade, Ray Allen, and Kevin Garnett, he's going to get a championship. You give almost any superstar Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett, of course they're going to possibly win a ring. So that's my whole thing. It's just, it's not cool the way he made it seem as if the guys he was playing with was garbage or something like that, bro. His team was stacked. And we respect Paul Pierce. We know what he brings to the game. We know what he did for the game. But we're not about to sit here at any point and say, oh, Paul Pierce is one of the greatest players, or he's a top 5 player in the league ever. Like, it's nothing like that. Ever close. Ever close. He got a championship. He won the finals MVP as well. But at the end of the day, bro, you're just not on that level. It's just different levels in the NBA, bro. It's different levels. You've been to the finals, or you won that finals the one time. D-Wade got 3 of them, bro. It's different levels to it. So I respect it. But anyway, if you disagree, you agree with anything I said, go ahead, shoot us a call, 219-413-9405. I appreciate you for tuning in, especially listening to me in my sick voice. But be sure to follow me on Instagram at The Run Podcast. That's where we post all the clips and everything as well. Follow my personal at I am Manny Wilson. And hey, man, until then, we will be back later on next week, and so on and so on and so on. Hopefully I'm healthy by then.